Hello, hello, hello. I figured everything's so crazy. Let's do something a little bit lighter today. I got this book here, Salty Dog Talk, Nautical Origins of Everyday Expressions. And I think some of these might surprise you. They might surprise you. They surprised me. I knew a lot of them. And I think intuitively you probably would know a lot of them too. But some of them are really cool. It teaches you a little bit about it's cool to learn about language and like where words and expressions come from. I think it interests me, so maybe it'll interest one of you guys. Maybe not. But this is just in alphabetical order. The authors of this book are Bill Beavis, yeah, Beavis, and Richard McCloskey. So, guys, I hope you don't mind if I read from your book here a little bit, but I'm going to do so. So, uh, I've I've underlined a couple of these I thought were really cool. We're going to start with bitter end. You know, when someone says like, "I'm going to hang on till the bitter end," like I never knew what that meant. And I'm going to go and say that they're probably not 100% right on all of these. I mean, when you make a book like this, you're kind of going off like myth and legend and other old stories. So some of these may be wrong, but let's just learn something. Bitter end. That's phrase. State of the bitter. And what does that mean? Where'd it come from? The name given to the innermost end of the anchor rope, so called because it was secured to a set of bitts or large pillars of oak bolted and fixed upright to the deck. In controlled circumstances, an anchor rope is allowed to run out to a measured amount until the anchor hits the seabed, whereupon it is checked. However, if the water is a lot deeper than expected or things go wrong, then the rope will keep running until the bitter end. After that, there is nothing left. So yeah, the bitter end. Cool. You've heard that phrase, blood is thicker than water. Where'd that come from? These words were first spoken by Commodore Josiah Tatnall, USN, to justify the intervention in the British attack in 1859 on the Pei Ho forts during the China Wars. He towed boatloads of survivors from the shore with his ship, the USS Toguan. A Southern born officer, he might as well have used the words later in his career when he quit the United States Navy and joined the Confederacy. Ooh. Blood money. Again, if you guys are just joining us, we're just looking at some nautical origins for everyday expressions. It's pretty interesting, actually. Blood money. You know where that comes from? It's the lower deck name for what was officially termed bounty money. Monies paid to crews for sinking an enemy vessel. Blood money was, however, the more honest appellation, since the amounts were reckoned not on the size or the importance of the enemy ship, but rather on the number of crew slaughtered. At one time, this was as high as 5 guineas for every man killed. Weird. Bottle up. You heard someone say that? Bottle up. Hey guys, how's it going, Eric? Nice to see you, bud. Hope you're having a great day. What is bottle up? Where'd that come from? Comes from the days before August 1970 when rum was issued daily to crews in the Royal Navy. Instead of drinking their tot at time of issue, as was the rule required, some men would spit their tot into a bottle. And when the bottle was full, they would drink it in one wild session. Bottle up. That's pretty interesting. And again, this is in alphabetical order. Some of these I think you would definitely recognize. Like, I know this one, canvas. You know where this comes from? It actually comes from cannabis. You guys know that. Derived from the Greek cannabis, which, although popularly understood as a stimulating narcotic, is in fact plain old-fashioned hemp. In the early days, sails were woven from hemp, and that is where the word canvas comes from. Even today, a boat sails are called her canvas, although the material itself might be anything from polyester to toughened paper. Interesting. That's where cannabis. If you guys didn't know, I knew that one. Careen. You know when something careens over. From the French word, I'm going to butcher. There's a lot of these words I don't know how to pronounce, so I apologize if I pronounce it. From the French cariniere, when a ship is deliberately beached and hauled over so that her bottom is accessible for scraping barnacles, repainting, or making repairs, she is careened. And if I mispronounce something, and we're pulling from Salty Dog Talk right here. If I mispronounce something, guys, feel free to uh, correct me or show me the phonetic pronunciation or something for sure. Castaway. We've all heard that. I mean, that kind of makes sense on its own. Being castaway, you can think of the visual, but let's see what it says here. A castaway. A seaman deliberately set ashore in a remote place as punishment, or and this is not generally realized, because he had gone mad. They weren't all Robinson Crusoes. The Irishman Paddy Watkins, for example, who was a castaway on the Galapagos Islands, used to come whooping and hollering out in the trees and terrorize the boat's crews who put in for the fresh water and wood for their fires. So much of a nuisance did this mad castaway become, he managed to capture and subordinate 6 whalermen as his personal slaves. And finally, a warship was sent to arrest him. A similar word is outcast, a person rejected by society. It could be connected with the high and low caste system once strong in India, although it more likely refers to the practice of casting a man away either ashore or into the sea. See, some of these are kind of questionable, like they're kind of digging a little deep on this, but some of these do have some historical facts here that are pretty interesting. Let's see here. Chew the fat. You know what that means? It means like talk with someone, right? That's what I generally know. Chew the fat. Hey, I was just hanging out with Jimmy, chewing the fat. In the days when brine was added to barrels of meat for preservative, it had a hardening effect on the fat. It was still edible, but it took considerable chewing. So to chew the fat has come to mean to talk endlessly. Okay, I don't know if some of these are loosely tied nautically. You know, it's barrels of fat, barrels of meat, fat, whatever, could be anywhere. Anyways, chowder. Do you know where that word comes from? Chew the fat. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Chowder. Do you know where that comes from? It's typically a New England term for a seafood soup. Was introduced to the American coast by the Breton fishermen who worked in the waters of the maritime provinces. It comes from the French chaudière or cauldron. This New England version of bouillabaisse, I can't remember, bouillabaisse, right? In its different forms, has created a culinary civil war along the New England coast. Which one do you guys like, the red or the white? You got to go white, right? I mean, come on. In the states of Maine and Massachusetts, chowder is made of milk, clams or fish, and potatoes and onions. In New Hampshire and to the south, it is made with water, seafood, and tomatoes. These last are pure sacrilege to the Maine and Massachusetts purists, such that almost every decade a semi-serious, semi-spoofing bill is introduced into the Maine legislature, making it illegal to put tomatoes into chowder within the state. The penalty? Dig a barrel of clams at high water. Note, it is impossible to dig clams at high water, for they are covered. Hence the meaning of all the American expression, happy as a clam at high water, ecstasy, the only time the clam feels safe. All right. My Lord, my dog over here is farting up a storm today, and it smells. Woo! My wall. Okay. Clean slate. That's what I need right now. A freaking clean slate in my nose. It's the custom of the old days to record courses and distances on a log slate, and at the end of the watch, transfer this information to the deck logbook. When this was complete, the slate was wiped clean for the next watch to take over. I think we pretty much could visualize that one. From this comes the notion of forgetting what has gone before and starting anew. Okay. Let's see what else we got on. There's a little more interest. Still in the C's here. So we got the rest of the alphabet here. I'm sure we can get some good ones here. Close quarters. We all know what that means. It means being close to somebody, right? Like living close. But let's see what they have to say about this. The name given for a defensive structure used in merchant ships and erected when attacks by privateers were expected. It consisted of heavy balks of timber placed around the afterdeck or quarters to form what was virtually a small fort. Holes were cut in the timbers through which muskets could fire. They were very effective. Falconer's Marine Dictionary of 1771 records that the concentrated fire of an English merchant ship fitted with close quarters defeated the united efforts of 3 French privateers who attempted to board her. Incidentally, the holes through which the muskets were fired were called loopholes, from the French Louvre, right? or window. The word is now used to mean gaps in the law. Hmm. Cock up. I've never really heard that expression. Have you guys heard that? Cock up? Okay, I guess he says right here, people are shy of using this in polite conversation. I guess I've just been in polite conversation my whole life, I guess. That's very good. That's nice. Although it is quite unnecessarily so. The expression refers to the untidy custom of leaving the yards not square and neatly braced up but cock-billed or cocked up at different angles. Considered a very unseamanlike practice, hence the allusion to something badly done. So don't cock things up, okay? Don't be all cockeyed and cocked up and cock-billed. You don't want none of that. Ooh, have you ever heard cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey? I've heard that one. Brass monkey. I don't know what it comes from, though. I don't think I know this one. Let's see. Cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey. It is said that expression dates back to the 17th century when ready-use cannonballs were stacked on metal trays called monkeys. These had dished recesses so that each cannonball was kept in position just touching its neighbor, and in calm weather, more balls could be stacked to form a pyramid. The monkeys were generally of iron, but in some ships, brass monkeys were used for ceremonial reasons. Normally, the arrangement was satisfactory, except in very cold weather, when the different coefficient of expansion meant that the brass trays would contract more speedily than the iron, causing the pyramid to collapse and the balls to fall off the monkey. Although this story has been current for 7 years, nobody has come forward to confirm or deny it. So, did someone just tell them that story? I don't know. You have to ask old Beavis here. Let's see. Cracking on. You guys ever say it was crack on? No, I don't think people really say that anymore. Cramp one's style. People used to say that back in the day. You're cramping my style. Do they still say that? I don't know, but it's a colloquialism borrowed from boat work where the expression was formerly to crab one's style. A smart boat's crew is the ambition of every ship in the Navy, where it is used to be said, a ship was known by her boats. If an oarsman were to miss his stroke and tumble backwards, or on rowing teams catch a crab, it would most definitely ruin their style. Also heard crimp one's style. So it's like you're rowing and like you hit a crab. You crabbed out. Catch a crab. I used to drive for catch a cab. Interesting. Cut and run. You ever done that before? You ever been at a party and we're like, oh, let's freaking cut and run. This place sucks. Some believe that this derives from the action of cutting through the anchor rope with an axe to hurry departure. But only under extreme conditions would any captain be prepared to lose an anchor. It is more probable the expression refers to the standard practice amongst square-rigged ships anchored in open roadstead of having their sails furled with expendable lashings. If the weather threatened or the enemy arrived, the sails could be set quickly by cutting through the lashings. The ship might then be able to run off before the wind. However, there are instances of ships trapped by an enemy cutting through their anchor cables to effect a fast and noiseless escape. In 1782, Admiral Hood extracted his fleet from under the noses of the French in St. Kitts by cutting through the hemp cables and running off before the wind. Other nautical expressions related to this are cut loose, cut the ties, break out. See, there's a lot of things that we say, cut ties. You have a toxic family member. You got ties with that. Comes from boats. We all used to sail around the world. And a lot of what we talk about, the way we express things, it comes from boats. Like next one, you've heard someone say, I like the cut of his jib. You know what a jib is? The jib is like the front sail in a sailboat. Maybe you don't know that if you're not a sailor or haven't sailed before, but cut of his jib. First impressions. Judging a person by appearance. Sailors had a penchant for apportioning ships' names to various appendages of the body. Toggle, bobstay, bumpkin, transom. Ooh, that girl's got a nice transom. So it's quite probable that the jib refers to a person's nose. Oh, I didn't know that. Some claim it is a literal meaning and does approaching ship's jib sail, which used to be an indication of their nationality. French and Spanish ships were supposed to have their jibs cut very much higher than those of British ships. On the other hand, incessant wars, prizes, and privateering meant that relatively few ships ever remained under their original flag. So the practice would not have been very reliable. Okay. Oh, the doldrums. Have you ever had the doldrums? You've heard a couple of these? The doldrums. It's a state of depression or stagnation. Sailors' name for a belt of calm or variable winds which lie between the trade winds of the northern and southern hemisphere. The term signified the state of apathy as crews passed through these latitudes with no breeze to fill the sails or cool their living spaces. So you're all hot and homeboy stank, got no breeze, ship's not moving, you're hungry and thirsty. You got the doldrums, homie. Donkey work. See, that sounds like something to come from a farm. And apart from the obvious rural connection, the phrase was regularly used at sea and referred to heavy lifting work done by the donkey engine, a small steam auxiliary engine with its own boiler, fitted to sailing ships in later years. See, some of these things you wouldn't think come from ship donkey work. I think dual usage there, probably, right? Embark. I didn't know this one. Just read it right now. Embark. I mean, it's like head out, right? We're going to embark on our journey. Barco is the Spanish word for ship. And embarcar is to go aboard a ship. Embark is derived from this word. Barco. I didn't know that was ship. Even keel. I know what that is. Oh, this next one. This one's interesting. Effed out. See that one right there? Might get me in trouble with the old YouTube gods. Okay, filibuster. That's the thing that the senators do, right? When they're in Congress, to try to like stall and make sure bills don't pass or just talk a bunch. And filibuster, the one-time name for robbers and buccaneers who seized islands off the Spanish-American coast and used them as bases for privacy. From the Dutch, I'm really going to slaughter this, so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce Dutch words at all. It's spelled Vribuiter. From the Dutch, Vibiter. How do Dutch people sound? Which in Spanish becomes filibustero. The word came ashore to describe the unorthodox action of one who attempts to obstruct the passage of a bill to government by endless speech making. Okay, so kind of, I don't even know if I understood what I just said there, so sorry. Okay, let's move on. Flogging a dead horse. You ever heard that? Beating a dead horse. I think that's normally what most people say. You're beating a dead horse, man. That means like, okay, you've said your thing, or it's already passed. There's nothing we can do about it. We've heard you. Like, you know what that means? I don't know where it comes from, though. Let's see. A dead horse was a seaman's term for the first month at sea, a month for which they would have already been paid and spent the money very quickly afterwards. So it seemed to them, with the money all gone, that the first month spent working for nothing. To mark the end of the dead horse month, the crew would make an effigy of a horse and parade it around the decks. On passenger ships, money would be collected. And then with great noise and celebration, the horse would be hoisted to the end of the yard, cut down, and dropped into the sea. No doubt there was the established understanding of beating a dead animal to work, but to ship's officers, flogging a dead horse described the difficulty of getting a crew to do any extra work during the first unpaid month at sea. That's interesting. Now, it does suck when you get paid beforehand when you're really broke and you have to go do a job. And you've already spent your money, and you're just working. You're like, "Arr." That is that. That's beating a dead horse. Fly by night. People don't say that too often anymore, do they? Fly by night. A large square sail used downwind or on a reach. It could be set and handled easily and quickly, which made it especially suitable for night sailing when it is expedient to take the light sails lest they prove difficult to hand in the darkness. The phrase has come to mean a shifty person, here today and gone tomorrow. Is that what it means? Fly by night? Interesting. Shifty person. Do you know any fly by night people? I do. Not too many though, luckily. Gave us the slip. You ever? There's a lot of these terms that are like talking about just like dipping out in a hurry, cutting loose, cutting out, giving someone the slip. Popular saying amongst TV cops. This could have a connection with the underworld, a slippery customer, for example. But then again, it was not uncommon for ships to escape by slipping their ropes or anchor cables. The point of this was that it could be done secretly with no noise and no assistance from the shore. What do you guys think about that one? Do you think that one checks out? Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that a lot. Hope you're having a great day, bud. Or gal, or person. Whoever you are. Glory hole. Whoa. We got 0 people here. I don't want to do glory hole when there's 0 people here. That's a good one. Let's do a different one. Get off my back. Did you know that get off my back was a nautical, that expression had a nautical origin? It's a plea from victimized. It is from the book about Sinbad the sailor, in which the old man of the sea climbs onto his back and refuses to get off. Sinbad eventually dislodges the nuisance by getting him drunk. Always worth a try. All right, this next one I was waiting for at least a couple people to be here. Glory hole. Whoa, glory hole. You know, where does that come from? A term which is sadly degenerated. Yeah, I think that's probably correct. I don't know what a glory hole. This is the origin of glory hole. A term which has sadly degenerated. When it first appeared in early ships, it was the strong room where species and treasures were kept. It next turns up as a lazaretto or locker, and then later descends to coal-burning ships where it was the name given to the stoker's accommodation. Finally, in the age of proper liner travel, the glory hole moved up into the eye of the ship to become the steward's mess. It has remained a mess ever since. So the term glory hole has had many different uses over time. It was the strong room where treasures were kept. Then it was your locker was your glory hole. And then it was the name to where the guys put coal into ships where they stayed. Their little cabins were called glory holes. And then it was where the stewardesses stayed. And now it's you either know or you don't. And hopefully you don't. Gripe. That's where it comes from. A vessel is said to gripe when, through bad design or sail balance, she repeatedly noses up in the wind, which causes her sails to flap and her speed to fall. She will also be a pig to steer. Another of the many expressions that sailors have applied metaphorically to humans. To gripe is to complain perpetually. I hate griping. I hate complaining. We're a big no complaining family around here. We live in Alaska. We got a lot of stuff we got to do, chores and stuff. It doesn't help to complain about it. Just whistle while you work, right? No one wants to hear a whiner. No one wants to hear a whiner. Don't whine. Hammocks. You guys like to sit in a hammock? I know I do. It's from the Spanish word hamaca. Columbus saw natives in San Salvador sleeping in cotton nets slung between trees, and seeing the advantage for shipboard use, immediately adopted the idea. Hammocks became widely used in ships in the Royal Navy, and by 1660, most men shared one between two. Still popular in some backwards parts of South America. That's kind of racist sounding. The traveler brings his hammock, the holstery provides the hooks. I do love a good hammock. That would, it sucks. One hammock for two dudes on the ship. Because, like, while he's sleeping, you're working. When you're sleeping, he's working. You got this gross little hammock down below deck. Sounds lovely. You know, my family actually, I could trace my lineage back to Governor Bradford of the Mayflower. That must have been a crazy trip, huh? Just crazy existence. That dude is a very brilliant man, and they were very brave. I mean, it sucks for all the indigenous folks. I mean, it's very complicated, but those people definitely were brave. Hijack. I don't think they mean like hijack. Let's just get that one. Hulking. Like hulking over. Okay, yeah. From the word hulk, which would in the hull of a derelict ship, Shakespeare describes Falstaff as a hulking great fellow, big, clumsy, unwieldy. Okay, some of these are whatever. Know the ropes. I mean, you can pretty much understand. Like a lot of these that you right when you see it in the context of sailing or a boat, you realize, oh yeah, obviously I know what that means. But we say these terms all the time without really thinking about it. You know, like be laid up, sick and unable to work. You know, you're laid up. The term is taken from the description of a ship laid up or out of commission, literally with her keel laid on a large wooden block to provide safe and level base so that her underside can be repaired or inspected. The opposite of laid up is launched, another sea term which has come into general use. Landmark. I mean, we all know what that means, landmark. But we use it in context like trying to explain where you live or something. Oh, there's this big tractor. It's a good landmark. Turn right at that road or something. Landmark. But a conspicuous piece of land or prominent building on the shore that is marked on the mariner's chart and which, when identified, enables the vessel to establish its position. The word has come to mean a turning point or some feature which marks a change. Oh, yeah, like a landmark in time, too. You can be like, that was a landmark moment. Like, yeah. A lot of these we could just say and you would know exactly what they mean, but would you like just assume that it comes from nautical terms like lay of the land? Do you have a good lay of the land? Like you wouldn't say that thinking you're out of the water necessarily, but obviously to know the lay of the land when you're out on the water is probably very vital. Leeway. Do you ever give someone some leeway? Like maybe give someone a little bit of extra space or a little bit of give some leeway. The distance a ship is forced sideways from her intended course by the action of wind and sea. It is correctly designated as the angle between the ship's head and the track which she will ultimately make. Colloquially, leeway is room to operate or falling behind with something and having to make up lost time. Leeway. You can just basically talk and just pirate nautical talk. Loose ends. Do you have any loose ends in your life? Loose ends. Rope ends which have become unraveled are called loose ends. It was a never-ending job in the sailing ship putting. It was the never-ending job in a sailing ship putting new whippings on the ends of running gear. If a sailor found himself idle, he would be ordered to go around the ship looking for loose ends to tie up. Hence the idea behind the expression of being bored with nothing to do. Man, no one likes to see an idle person at the work. That's why you gotta clean, just clean. You know, I'm working here. Maelstrom. You don't hear that word very much. The Norwegian word for a whirlpool. There are over 50 whirlpools off the Norwegian coast. The word describes any violent upheaval, a maelstrom. The Norwegian word for whirlpool. 50 whirlpools off the Norwegian coast? Really? That's crazy. That sounds scary. Is like dying in a whirlpool something you got to worry about in Norway? Maiden voyage. We all know what that means. First trip. It's a natural illusion. See, that's what they say. Ships serve ladies, and one is new and unused would be thought of as a maiden. Making headway. I'm making headway through this book right now. When a ship moves through water, she is said to be making headway. Expression. One has to imagine a large and clumsy sailing ship trying to tack, which means turn and put your sails on the other side of the boat, to tack in light airs. R.H. Dana describes the operation in which a dozen different orders were involved. Frequently, the effort would come to nothing, but the drill would have to be repeated for a second or third time, with the ever-present risk that a ship would drift and go aground. It was with some relief that the crew watched as the slowly fill and cry, "She's making headway," was heard. She's making headway. Oh, Beavis. Beavis always got these jokes. He's got jokes for days. Headway. Yeah, headway. Okay, mate. We all know what a mate is. Hey, that's my mate over there. A friendly word meaning two had bred together, more precisely meat. Two who share meat. From the old Teutonic word gamaton, ga implying a conjunction plus mat for meat. Other people think it comes from the French matelot or sailor, but they're saying it comes, so a mate. Your mate is someone you've literally eaten meat with. Ah, that's my mate. We had a burger together. Mayonnaise. Mayonnaise? Comes from boats? Believed to have been coined by the French officer Du de Richelieu, who led a successful attack on the British Navy base of Port Mahon in Minocroc. I don't know how you pronounce that either. In 1756. Finding the storehouses in flames and with no food for the visitors, Richelieu improvised a meal from remnants comprising eggs, vinegar, oil, pepper, salt, and mustard. The beaten ingredient so delighted the Frenchmen they named it after their victory. Mayonnaise. That's kind of iffy, isn't it? Come on. It's kind of iffy. Missed the boat. You can obviously figure out where that came from. I've seen that happen too. We have cruises come here in Homer. People literally miss the boat and they're out there like, "Oh, come back." And they're like, "No, we're not." Well, I see Captain Cook in this explanation. That's my wife. Was her maiden name was Cook. Captain Cook had no children of his own, but she is related to Captain Cook through some mechanism, nephew, uncle mechanism. No room to swing a cat. Have you ever said that expression? I have not. No room to swing a cat. I mean, do we really need to know where it comes from if we don't say it? But we did see Captain Cook, so I'm going to look at it. No room to swing a cat. Most dictionaries agree that cat was the short name for the cat of nine tails. 9 links of line flayed out from a handle, which seamen were flogged. Ouch. I don't want to be flogged ever. I mean, I got my ass beat with a belt from my dad when I was a kid a bunch. That's pretty much like being flogged, I guess. But not with a cat of 9 tails. Ooh. Okay, the cat. No room to swing a cat. Talking about cat of 9 tails. Since the required considerable arm movement, there was clearly insufficient room to swing a cat below decks, with clearance little more than 5.5 feet. Equally important was the fact that below decks only a handful of the crew could stand witness, for flogging was very much an exemplary punishment. The cat was also the name for a sailing collier common throughout Northern Europe at the time. They were extremely handy vessels. HMS Endeavour, Captain Cook's ship, was formerly a Northumberland cat. But they were also very small, just 600 tons. So it is possible that the expression "no room to swing a cat" may have referred to the minuteness of a port or anchorage, meaning not room enough for this very small vessel to swing at anchor. Another opinion is that cat is a corruption of cot, which was the sailor's name for his hammock. What do you guys think? Which they gave us three origins for that term. You just never know. Like someone might you hear what I'm saying here, and then you might repeat that what I just said is true, and it might not be true. I don't know. I'm just reading this book, so that's weird. Language works, It just if you say something and someone knows what you mean, then pretty much the language worked. Not seeing very interesting ones right now. Sorry here. Outfit. The word outfit. That's what you're wearing right now. Collective term for gear or equipment required for a ship being made ready for fit or for sea. The preparation period known as fitting out. The word outfit has gradually come to include clothes worn for a special purpose. I see by your outfit you are a cowboy. You see by my outfit that I'm a cowboy. You can tell by our outfits that we are all cowboys. If you get an outfit, you can be a cowboy too. Smothers Brothers spoof on the streets of Laredo. Smothers Brothers. That's probably really too old for most of you guys, huh? Unless you're older than me, basically. Probably don't know who the Smothers Brothers are. They were two brothers. They used to go to Denny's a lot and eat hash browns smothered and covered, a lot of onions and peppers and stuff. And tell jokes. That was a Smother Brother. Overreach, overhaul. Which one? See, they're all everything we say comes from the sea, man. Overhaul. Originally, the word meant to feed the slack rope back through the set of pulley blocks. You hauled on a block and tackle. When the two blocks met, you overhauled the ropes to start again. The word came into general use when the butt lines, which were long lengths of rope used for furling the sails, had to be pulled back through their blocks, or else they would hang in great loops and chafe against the sails. The crew were sent aloft to overhaul the butt lines. Gradually, the word came to include the inspection and repair of any part of the rigging, and finally all the ship's gear. Since then, it has come ashore. Overreach. Did you know that was from boats? The word reach has several meanings. Reach is one of the points of sail. I know that much. The word reach has several meanings. A straight stretch of river is a reach. To sail within the wind free is to sail on a reach. A vessel which overtakes another is said to reach past her, while a ship held steady with some sails aback will be inclined to forereach. Overreach, which means to fail by being too clever, describes a vessel trying to reach an upwind destination, but which has held one tack too long. The time it has taken her past her destination, and she is said to have overreached. In other words, she has to retrace her steps. Pooped. I'm pooped, or I pooped. I know those two meanings. I'm tired, pooped, right? Comes from the devastating effect of a huge wave breaking over the stern or poop deck of the ship. Such seas could often flood, even sink a ship. Stowing in companionways and hatches. Yachts can be pooped while running before a big sea. It is now used as a slang term for being crushed, exhausted, or satiated. Posh. Posh. That means like fancy, right? It is said that the letters POSH were printed on the tickets of first class passengers traveling to and from India in the days of British rule. There is no evidence to support this, although the term was current and comes from the practice of wealthy passengers booking a cabin on the port side of the ship outward bound. A starboard side cabin when coming home, which in case was the cooler side of the ship away from the glare of the sun. The word posh stood for port out, starboard home. Interesting. don't want the sun in your eyes. I know I don't like the sun in my eyes. I have very strong light sensitivity. And if I go outside and the sun's even kind of sunny, I want my sunglasses. I know immediately when I walk outside if I forgot my sunglasses. It's not like I'm driving. Oh, no, I forgot. No, immediate. It hurts. I've had too many knocks on the head, I think, concussions. And that can mess up your sensitivity. But interesting, posh. So that meant basically you were going to be on the port side, the left side of the boat, going out. So the sun wasn't in your eyes. And then starboard on the right side of the boat coming back so the sun's not in your eyes. That's very posh. Interesting. Quarantine. We've heard that word a lot. We heard that word a lot about 6 years ago, didn't we? It's from the Italian quaranta, quaranta, meaning 40. Quaranta. Quarantine is from the Italian quaranta, meaning 40, which was the original period which ships with infectious disease aboard were held offshore. The practice was begun in Venice during the 14th century when a council of health convened to draw up the quarantine laws. Ancient physicians ascribed many strange changes to the period of 40 days. There is no medical basis for this and seems to have more to do with biblical connection, 40 days being the most popular period of expiation and penance. The flood, Moses on the Mount, Jesus in the wilderness, all these lasted 40 days. The most relevant, though, was the 40 days that Noah had to wait before opening up the doors of the ark. Perhaps that's where they got the idea. I haven't read this much in a while, out loud. I mean, quarters. You know where that comes from? Quarter. Quarters means like your place where you are living, right? That's your quarters. Strictly the area of the vessel from between 45 degrees on either side of the stern. Port quarter, starboard quarter. It was the part of the ship where the officer's accommodation was situated and was known as their quarters. Gradually, the word has come to mean lodging or billets in the military sense. Rate of knots. I learned this one recently. It's like knots is a speed, like a nautical speed. And let's just have them explain it. The rate of knots. A knot is the nautical measure of speed, 1 nautical mile per hour. Until the mechanical log, which registers the distance a ship travels, came into use, speeds were calculated with the chip log, which was a long line with a triangle-shaped piece of wood at the end to anchor it in the water. At intervals of 24 feet 4 inches, a knot was tied to the line. This represented 1/240th part of a mile. To calculate speed, the line was allowed to run out from the ship, and at the same moment, a sand glass was started. The glass was timed to 15 seconds, which is 1/240th part of an hour. So as time and distance were of the same proportion, the number of knots which passed through the operator's hand while the glass was running was equal to the number of miles the ship was making in the hour. To do something at a rate of knots has come to mean at high speed. Rats from a sinking ship. Man, there's going to be a lot of that going on here coming up soon. Yeah. Keeping it light today, folks. We're keeping it light. Not getting heavy, not getting serious, not being alienating. Keeping it light. Reading from Salty Dog Talk. From Bill Beavis and Richard McCloskey. We're learning that a lot of things we say, a lot of terms and colloquialisms come from people who used to sail around on ships. A lot of ship talk. Hey, bud. My other dog's snuggling me right here. Other dog over here is farting a lot. Snugs and farts. This is world, baby. Snugs and farts. Rats from a sinking ship. Do you know where that comes from? To walk on a project because it seems doomed. Sailors believed that the sight of rats seen coming out of ships' holds was a portent of disaster. There was some substance in this, since rat frequently inhabited the bilge, which was the first place to flood should the vessel be foundering. However, it is something else to attribute a kind of sixth sense to a rat and get alarmed just because it leaves the ship in port. Yet in 1923, at the San Francisco Navy Yard, a number of seamen did become apprehensive when rats were seen leaving the USS Young. The following day, in an unprecedented disaster, the Young, along with 6 more destroyers, held up on the rocks on passage to San Diego. The rats know, man. The rats know. The real McCoy. You don't hear that one very much anymore. He's the real McCoy. That means like he's the real deal, I think. I think that's what it means, right? He's like straight shooter. No bullshit. The real McCoy. During Prohibition in the USA, during 1920s and 1930s, if you don't know, Prohibition was when alcohol was illegal in the United States. It's called Prohibition in the 20s and 30s. Huge quantities of liquor were smuggled along a stretch of coastline between New York and Atlantic City. One of the most audacious and successful men engaged in this traffic was a boat builder from Nova Scotia called Bill McCoy. Over a period of 4 years, he's credited with delivering over 70 million of contraband whiskey. Although later caught and convicted for smuggling, McCoy was a man of integrity. He kept himself independent from the gangsters and was careful never to stray inside U.S. territorial water. Transfers were made at sea. He was proud of the fact that his activities brought prosperity to some poverty-stricken communities. But most importantly, he never defrauded his customers, and at a time when adulteration was widespread and people were blinded or fatally poisoned from the effects of backstreet distilling, every bottle that McCoy brought in was 100% genuine and unblemished. Hence the suggestion of authenticity contained in the expression. See, that's what happens when things are illegal. See, during Prohibition, if you bought a bottle of booze, you might go blind or die because there was no regulations, because it was illegal. It's stupid. I mean, that's what happens. It's textbook example of what happens. Regatta. I love saying regatta. We have some regattas here in Homer. I sail on my buddy Johan's boat. It's really fun. Regatta is like a sailing race, right? It's an Italian word. The correct spelling is regata, and it means a boat race. In the Middle Ages, it was the custom for the people of Venice to sail to the Lido, to practice throwing slings. Since this was for possible defense of the newly founded republic, the government provided boats for the trip, and between them, a haphazard race was begun. Subsequently, it became official with the boats begun from a line. The Italian for line is riga, and is from this word that regatta is derived. Regattas are still very popular in Venice and take place each year. How we doing out there, guys? We learning some stuff? Rig. We all know what that is, right? Your rig, your gear. The particular arrangement of masts and sails is known as the vessel's rig, and it is by this that she is recognized. Jackass bark. Is everything okay? I don't think anyone's here. Okay, boo, that's enough barking. Dogs are barking. Boo just farted again. Maybe I should let them go outside. Be right back. Oh, hush. I don't know what's going on out there. Hopefully it's not a moose. I don't think it is. Okay. I think I might do a couple more here and then we're going to call it. My voice is getting a little strained from all this talking. See if we can get a couple good ones here. Salary. This is saying that salary comes from boats. Let's see. It seems a long way from salary to salt. but it is from this that the word is derived. From the Roman custom of paying soldiers and sailors a quantity of salt as part of their wages. It was known as a salarium from the Latin sal, meaning salt, and also gives rise to the expression worth his salt, meaning that a man was worth his keep. Salt was not considered quite so precious by Northern European sailors, but in the early days of sail, it was still a very valuable commodity where it was used principally to preserve meat. Eating, salt tablets are still issued on most ships in the tropics, and even as a crude antiseptic. It is from this that we get the expression rub salt in the wounds. So salary actually comes from salt, because people used to get paid in salt. I'm glad I don't get paid in salt. I guess it doesn't really matter what you get paid in as long as someone else take it, right? I get paid in like paper and numbers on a screen, which isn't really anything. So I guess it doesn't really matter what you get paid in as long as you get paid and someone else is like, yeah, I'll take that. Scraping the barrel. Before the days of canned foodstuffs and refrigeration, the ship's meat was supplied soaked in brine and stored in casks or barrels. The fat, which became hard, stuck to the edge of the barrel, but in a hungry ship, this was never allowed to waste, and the crew would have to scrape the barrel, hence use the very last and sometimes the inferior fat. I've learned some things today. Hope you have. Shanty. That's like a song sung by sailors, right? Work songs sung aboard ship, which brightened up the drudgery of hand hauling and also ensured the men all pulled their weight together. There were different shanties for different work. Halyard shanties were brisk for the quick but comparatively easy work of hoisting sail. Capstan shanties were sung where the anchor was to be hauled aboard, was generally slow and sentimental. The custom goes back to the 15th century, and the word shanty probably takes its name from the word French chanteur, to sing. Sorry for butchering these pronunciations of these French words and all these other words too. Well, maybe we'll stop right there and we'll do another second part. We're in the S's. Still got another third left, I guess. This has been Salty Dog Talk, learning about nautical origins from everyday expressions. And thank you for joining me. This video is a little different than what we normally do, but figured let's make it light today. Let's just wishing you all well, and I hope everybody's doing good. And let's just make sure we're being nice to each other and taking care of each other. Okay, guys? That's what it's all about. Peace out.